Greetings, urban farmers, gardeners, and healthy food visionaries. Farmer Greg here, and welcome to the 567th episode of the Urban Farm Podcast, where every day we work together to educate and inspire you to become part of your food revolution. When we visit our local grocery stores, the rows and rows of produce on display may seem like an abundance in varieties. But did you know that over the last 2 decades, 75% of genetic diversity of agricultural crops has been lost? Take a moment to imagine if your favorite seeds disappeared from catalogs tomorrow. Wouldn't you like to have a backup plan? From the local seed varieties going extinct every year to GMOs and seed patenting, we're experiencing more insecurity in our world's seeds than ever before. That's why small farmers and hobby gardeners from around the world are joining together to preserve seed diversity, not only to grow robust, high-yield crops in their own gardens, but also for the sake of the greater world. I invite you to join me for the Global Seed Summit this November 17th to the 20th for an online free event that will gather thousands of food growers from around the world to discuss the importance of seeds and how you can become part of the seed movement. Over 4 days, you'll learn how seed libraries strengthen food sovereignty and why you'll want to join or maybe even create one in your own community. You'll also learn about seed adaptation for extreme clients, plus you'll be amazed by inspired seed initiatives from around the world. This event is free to join, and I'll even offer opportunities for you to stock up on bulk seeds to start your own seed journey. So, are you ready to live your most food secure life? Sign up for the Global Seed Summit at globalseedsummit.com. I look forward to seeing you there. Today on our podcast, we have someone who is expanding the functionality of her property. We're talking with Liane Hasner about creating her urban farm. Liane learned gardening from her parents by helping them plant flowers as well as pick string beans, tomatoes, and peaches in Northeast Philadelphia. She attended Saul High School of Agricultural Sciences, initially wanting to become a veterinarian before realizing blood and guts were not her thing. She received a bachelor's in hotel restaurant management from Penn State University and worked a few different management positions, including at a farm-to-table restaurant, which reignited her gardening spark. Liane and her husband purchased their dream home 2 years ago in New Jersey and have started creating their urban farm. Inspired by the Urban Farm podcast, Liane decided it was necessary to come up with a name. After a few days and countless suggestions from friends and loved ones, David finally blurted out something, anything, and that was it. They are now in the process of transforming their already beautiful property into a complete oasis of mostly edible landscape. Welcome to the show today, Liane. Are you ready to rock?
Yes, thanks so much, Greg. I'm really excited to be on the show.
Excellent. So I shared a bit about you. Can you fill in the blanks for us and share more about the path you took to get where you're at today?
Yep, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia. We had a really great big backyard, and probably when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my dad got these 2 peach trees, and looking back on it, I kind of realized how much I grew up with these trees and really appreciated the fresh fruit and just the joy of picking a sun-warmed peach and like taking it right in the house and, cutting it up and sprinkling some cinnamon on it and just eating it right there. It's just pure joy. It's like so simple. But so as I got a little older, and I thought that veterinarian might be something that I would like to do. Then as I got more into it, I'm a little bit squeamish with blood and guts, so not really my thing. But through my high school, I had a lot of opportunities to learn a ton of different things through the FFA. And then from after I graduated high school, went to Penn State. As you mentioned, after Penn State, I worked at a farm-to-table restaurant, which, hyper-local food. They used all parts of, whatever animals they used for their meals and, just that super quality, fresh, local stuff. And mostly everyone that worked there had this passion for gardening too. And it was just so exciting and refreshing to work with people that are like-minded and all so fresh, and just, it was great. So after that, my husband and we'd been living in a house literally a mile from the house that we found. So I was a pet sitter, and in between my pet sitting gigs, I came home and we had been looking for houses for, a couple months at a time. And I found a listing for a property a mile down the road. Didn't even know it existed. It's on a dead end. It's on the lake.
Wow.
We immediately called our realtor, got an appointment that day, came to look at the house, fell completely in love with the house. Every room we looked at, we just fell more in love. And I went outside to look around the property a little bit, and it was early springtime, so I think it was around March, and none of the trees had foliage yet, so I could see right down to the lake. So as I'm walking along, here comes this big, beautiful bald eagle flying over the lake, and I was dumbfounded. And then I look a little closer, and there's these two beautiful white swans swimming on the lake. And I asked my realtor, and I said, who did you have to pay to create this magic that's happening right now?
Wow.
So we just really fell in love with the property, and we're so lucky that we were able to get it, and we're thankful every day that we're here. So that was a big piece of it. And then, so along with our property, we have a super awesome neighbor who is also into gardening, and she mentioned our town's green team to me. And so I was like, oh, well, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. So then I became a part of our green team for Oakland. And again, just more really awesome, like-minded people who are super interested in sustainability and regenerative, property caretaking and, things like rain gardens and making sure we're recycling properly and food waste and composting, just the whole shebang.
Wow. So you're really into the town and the neighbors about getting them to be regenerative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where did you stumble across the word regenerative at?
Mostly from your podcast.
Oh, all right. Very good. I didn't plan that answer, so.
No, I know, definitely not. But that's mostly where I've heard it recently. But, it's something I think that people are realizing is more important than the sustainable piece. It needs to continue going. So, and recreate things. So after joining the green team, I wanted to continue on my quest for knowledge of gardening and such, and have started listening to a couple different podcasts in which I found you were interviewed on a different podcast, and that led me to the Urban Farm podcast. So once I was listening to the Urban Farm, that convinced me to create a name for our property.
Yay.
And which, again, you explained a little bit about that. And so my husband kind of just blurted it out in desperation. And I said, that's it. So we went with something, anything, Urban Farm. It's a little bit more of a suburban farm, but same idea. And then again, back to the podcast, learning things about permaculture. Our first year here, I spent just observing the land, seeing
good for you.
Yeah, so I needed to see what grew where and where the sun hits, where the trees grew in, where the water flows, where the wind blows, all of the things. That has also led to me being conscious, too, of once I, started implementing things and systems that I wanted to try to be as sustainable and use as many recycled things to create the other systems that I wanted to create. So my garden beds are mostly trimmed with either logs or, recycled pallet wood, or I use pallets to make planters, and things in my greenhouse have been recycled or pulled from other people's trash. So again, just trying to leave a smaller impact.
Yeah. And you're using resources recycled from Craigslist, Facebook, neighbors. Tell me about that process.
Yeah. So there are so many resources that I am just now figuring out. The most recent, actually, on Facebook, a local woman created a plant swap group, and it has opened so many doors. A lot of people think that gardening or growing your own food has to be expensive, and it doesn't.
Amen to that.
Yeah, so there's just so many resources, whether you do things such as harvesting the seeds from the produce that you already have. And I know sometimes that's not always the best route because, things are sprayed with chemicals to prevent future growth. But, you could potentially start a pepper plant from seeds from your sweet peppers that you had in your kitchen. The easiest one, I think, is potatoes. They're great to
get organic potatoes at the grocery store, and when they start to eye out, you plant them.
Yep, absolutely. Oh man, and that's actually one of my favorite fresh items are potatoes. You don't realize how long they've been on their journey to get to you until you've had a fresh potato that's, a day old or that day from your garden. So Facebook is a great resource. Craigslist, the free section. A lot of people will put on Craigslist, curb alert or yard sale this day, and they'll put pictures or previews and asking your neighbors, hey, do you want that pumpkin from Halloween? No, you're going to throw it in the trash? Okay, let me plant the seeds and grow 25 more pumpkins. Being mindful. Another thing that I've found recently, too, is I work at a coffee shop, and when we run the air conditioner, the condensation that drips off of the pipe out back, I collect and then store that in my rain barrel for future use.
Wow. So you've really taken this whole observation piece of permaculture to heart.
Yeah. A lot of times you kind of just go through life and it just moves so quickly that you don't think to take the time to notice these things. But yeah, the permaculture has definitely made me start to realize a lot of these things.
Nice. And you've played with permaculture enough and you've listened to enough podcasts on it. Can you kind of explain to me what permaculture is for you?
Permaculture is, as a lot of people have mentioned previously on the podcast too, working with nature to create systems basically where everyone wins. So instead of fighting nature, trying to kill each and every single bug, you encourage it and let's say you plant specific pollinator plants that invite different types of bugs that will then eat the other bugs. So everyone wins. You have a beautiful garden and it's all good.
Nice. And a big piece of this also, you mentioned being mindful. Tell me about how being mindful has impacted you in the garden.
Going back to the observation piece, just paying attention to what is going where and just being there. It's being mindful in the garden is easy for me because it gives me something to focus on aside from the outside world. So it's much like a lot of people, it's very relaxing for me to just kind of dive in and be engulfed in, the garden and nature and that process.
And I think a big piece of it is being mindful and being present right in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I think we see so many things if we're being present and mindful in the moment that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise see, like condensation from the coffee house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just noticed the puddle that it created. And, there's a great patch of grass in that area that gets to benefit from that water. But there was still so much just evaporating. And I thought I could really use that. So I do. And they're super supportive of it. They were like, oh, that's a great idea.
And that's really, from my perspective, that's really what this whole regenerative Process is. And you've said it twice now. It's a win-win. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Excellent. And how have you participated in the plant swap? And what kind of plants have you traded and what have you gotten?
So far, my neighbor, thankfully, she has a small pickup truck, something on my list of things to get in the future.
Right.
She has a small pickup truck, and I told her and invited her to the group as well. And I caught her pulling out of her driveway one day, going on her way to pick up a free azalea bush. And she said, hey, do you want a free azalea bush? And I said, absolutely.
Right.
So, yeah, and allowing other people to be part of the group has really been my contribution thus far. I haven't actually gotten to swap too many things at this point. I have given some string beans to a neighbor. I've given some pumpkins to a neighbor. I potted up a tomato plant for another regular at the coffee shop. So we got to talking, and so I gave her a tomato plant. And, it's a really great platform for advice too. So for people just starting out, it's such a great community, and everyone's so supportive. And one thing that I have a lot to learn from them is I don't have many house plants yet because I have 3 cats and they think that they're toys and they will go boom.
Yeah.
So I'm in pursuit of a few house plants that I may be able to hang up high and out of reach. And there's a huge interest of house plants on that page. So it's, again, a great resource.
Nice. So I'm walking up your driveway into your farm, and what am I going to see?
All right. Well, the first thing you're going to see on the left of the driveway are some beautiful black-eyed Susans that are blooming right now, along with some lily flowers, and also a lot of nettles and out-of-control growth that I'm just letting be for the time being. To the right, we actually have a pretty large bamboo thicket that can be problematic, but can also be utilized in a lot of different ways, which is another thing on my list to tackle going forward, whether it be using the bamboo to build trellises for my plants, or I tried making like an eco confetti and food coloring to make, just an eco-friendly confetti for parties or like maybe outdoor weddings or something.
Wow.
Just trying to get creative with it. I do have to keep it under control a little bit because I don't want it completely overtaking the property. So we have the bamboo thicket, and then continuing. So our property is a bit of a semicircle. So the driveway goes straight back along my neighbor, and then the circle part, like the semicircle part, is along the lake. And with that, it is a hill. So there is some flat part, but there's a majority of our land is a hillside. So some of the benefits of that are that we do have mulberry trees growing, and the mulberries are actually pretty accessible because they're planted sort of down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
So the branches are within my reach because the trunk is, 5-6 feet down the hill. So that's really cool. I recently discovered that they were mulberries and that they're edible, and I've been eating them ever since. So they're actually blooming right now. I have also, right next to the mulberry trees, I have my little greenhouse. So it's about 6 foot by 8 foot. I have that lined on the outside of that where all the full sun hits. I just created a little bit of more gardening space. So I have some tomatoes and some peppers, some cucumbers, and a bunch of sunflowers planted there. In addition to that, I have a raised garden bed that currently has cut flowers. So they're not in bloom just yet, but hopefully July they'll start getting some blooms on them. I have bachelor buttons, I have zinnias, I put nasturtiums and daisies, and I believe there's some snapdragons in there as well. So I'm really hoping for a nice, beautiful, bright, colorful patch of land over there. And I also have some garlic and some blackberry bushes. The blackberry bushes, I think, are about 3 years old. So they're just starting to get some berries now.
Nice.
I have some garlic, which I'm really excited about because last year the squirrels got my garlic. And I have a small strawberry patch, which needs a little bit of improvement because I don't think that they're getting quite enough sun.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing along the semicircle where we still have all that flat area up top, I have a nice long compost pile. So I turn that maybe once a week, every 2 weeks or so, and just kind of keep it moving along. And so the things that we put in the compost pile, which leads me to the next piece of what we have on our property. So we have chickens. So we put their manure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I have chicken manure. We do our grass clippings. We do shredded bamboo. If I take stuff down and I have a whole lot of it, we'll chip it up. We'll throw it in there. All of our food, fruits and veggies, wastes, which is also really great too because we have this nice big window in our kitchen area, and the compost pile serves two purposes. So it allows me to create wonderful, fertile soil for my plants, and it also feeds our wildlife. So we have resident groundhogs that live in the hills. So I'm pretty sure they're a mated pair. We have one that's a little bit lighter in color than the other, so I know who's who. So they come up and enjoy, watermelon rinds in the summer, or pumpkin, or apple rinds and cores and things like that. Avocado they'll eat.
Wow.
And then, and so we also have a family of raccoons, which is really adorable. I heard the babies screaming the other day.
Wow.
The mom and dad were trying to scurry them along down by the lake somewhere. They were just trying to make them go from one point to another, and the babies were just very upset about it. It was very loud. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah. So if you have chickens, though, the raccoons and chickens don't often get along. What have you done to keep the chickens safe?
Correct. So the run and the coop are completely fenced in, like top, bottom, underneath, everything. And that's actually one of the requirements from our town ordinance, is that it has to be completely fenced, bottom, top.
Really?
The whole nine. Yeah. So there's distance guidelines that has to be a certain distance from the house and from your neighbor's house. We can't have roosters, so we can only have hens. And our first year, we can have, at the max, we can have 4. So we do have 4. We just got them this year. We got them in March. So they're fun.
They're just about starting to lay. Did you get them as chicks?
I did not. They were about 6 months. So they started laying. Yeah, they started laying pretty soon. So I haven't noticed any evidence yet that anyone has been trying to get to them. So there's no digging, there's no wires bent or anything. So I'm continuing to keep an eye on that, but I'm pretty confident that we're safe.
Nice. And who built your chicken coop for you?
Oh, well, that's a whole other story. So initially I had attempted to build the chicken coop myself. My husband, he helped me purchase and pick up all of the lumber from the store. And, I have a bad habit of jumping into things before I've completely planned them.
You and me too.
And sometimes I have a little bit of a difficult time articulating my vision. So that's another communication piece that I'm always working on. When communicating with my husband, sometimes things get a little frustrating because I'm just not articulating what I really want. So this whole urban farm is a great process, and it's always continuing to teach me lessons on many aspects of my life.
I think if we're paying attention while we're doing this, that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so in addition to the chickens, I also have blueberry bushes that I just planted. So we do have a couple of blueberries on them, but I'm expecting them to get much bigger next year. And then in the future, I want to get apple trees and also figure out ways to utilize that space that is all hillside going down to the lake. So right now, I currently planted pumpkin seeds as if they were fairy dust, and I just sprinkled them everywhere.
Nice.
So they are coming up nicely, and my goal, hopefully, is that they will follow the sun down that back hill, and hopefully I'll get a few, but I know that the groundhogs will probably enjoy them along with the raccoons, but we'll see what we get.
I love the way that you're processing building this out in your head, and I love the way that it's showing up, because you're just jumping in and you're trying things, and that's really what permaculture is about, is we have to observe, which you've done a lot of, and then, try something and be willing to fail. And I love that.
Yeah, my husband actually really often tries to get some digs in at me in saying that I'm a professional plant killer, which trial and error. Just said, you need to try. And I tell him all the time now, my response is, it's just part of the observation process.
Right. Right. Well, and the other thing, and you've articulated this many times since we started talking, and that's the abundance of nature. How, free trading of plants, and there's just such an abundance out there. Once it starts happening, it's like, what do you do with it all? Well, you're sharing it with the animals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And neighbors too. I mean, so I personally don't really like string beans very much,
Hmm.
but I I found that someone in town does, and they don't take up a lot of space to grow. So she lives in an apartment and doesn't really have the space to grow them and loves them. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to grow string beans for you because I like
Aw.
watching them grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love watching them grow. It's great to see them. They climb up, a piece of my deck and get all the sun, and it's cool.
It's cool. That is for sure. So I'm going to shift on you, and I'd like for you to talk about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what you might have learned from it.
All right, so we're going to go back to the chicken coop on that one. The chicken coop was quite a test of patience, and I realized that I just didn't have the skill set really, or like I said before, the vision wasn't really being articulated, and I couldn't convey what I wanted to do within the budget that I wanted to do it. And so finally, my husband, as sweet as he is, bought me a prefab chicken coop I think it was for our anniversary. So that was
Nice.
extremely kind of him and very beneficial for our marriage, I'm sure, and also just for time, time wise, it was really easy. Once it was delivered, it took a few people to put into place and then screw together, but it just it went from me attempting to build this huge structure without much of a plan and just kind of winging it, which took 3 or 4 months, and then it was prolonged by the weather being rainy or windy or too hot, or or my work schedule, and just a lot of things to overcome and a lot of obstacles. And so instead of like quitting or giving up, we just rerouted.
And that was really sweet of him to reroute for you, with you.
Oh,
I'm going to
yes.
say with you.
Yes. 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 He is very excited about the chickens. He's always been excited for them, but now that we have them, we are already planning to increase the flock next year.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have commented and showed us the photos of what they call Cooptown. So a couple little chicken coops that are, like a bank or a saloon or the hair salon or
Uh-huh.
they're themed different things and they're decorated real cute. And he's a big advocate for Cooptown now.
Nice. Is that a website, or what is Cooptown?
So Cooptown, I think I don't even know the person, but it was on Facebook, and it was someone's husband built her a Cooptown for her chickens. And it's just kind of gone viral, I guess. It's been spreading around for a couple months now, and it's cute. It's funny, it's cute, and it's for their chickens, and everyone's getting a good laugh from it.
Nice. I just Googled Cooptown. Husband makes wife her chickens a chicken coop town. We'll have to look.
Yeah,
We'll have to look into that. That's looking fun.
yeah. So that was funny. Yeah, so I just learned that, sometimes you just kind of have to take a step back and reevaluate your
Hmm.
process and then continue.
Excellent. And what do you consider your biggest success?
So my biggest success at this point, I would say, is influencing people in a positive way. Over the past 6 months or so, I've actually had 2 different people tell me that I have influenced them in ways such as reminding them about greener alternatives, creating a compost pile, just making an effort and just doing something, like just going for it. And I can't tell you that there's a better feeling than when someone confirms that you have reached them. It's just such a satisfying and like
Yeah.
rewarding feeling. And I
Hmm.
know that you know that with the urban farm, and it's just cool. And a lot of my ability to share my energy and continue to influence people comes from my family and how they encouraged my love of the outdoors as a child. So I thank them a lot for that and allowing me to grow and play and, pick the peaches and help grow the tomatoes and, the rose bushes and things like that. And also, of course, for my husband, who is my enabler in the best way possible. He makes most, if not all, of these projects that I've done come to reality.
Isn't it great having a partner like that?
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah. Heidi and I have been together for 7 years, and we had an opportunity to move back into the urban farm. I've been here for 31 years now, but I took a year off, and we had an opportunity to move back into the urban farm. And I said, you know what? We could go find another place to buy, or we could move back into the urban farm. And we came here and spent a day here, and she fell in love with the place. And now she's got her Heidi's Happy Hens out back, and she's, a great chicken mom. And so I love when partners show up that way in our dreams.
Yes. Yeah, it's just great.
And what drives you?
I always love being outside. We already went over that. Growing up, I was outside all the time in the garden, and I am a big music fan too. A lot of alternative rock in that genre. And a musician from the band Incubus, the lead singer Brandon Boyd, I follow him on Instagram, and he posted a book, and it's called Kiss the Ground, and by Josh Tickell.
Yep.
And it goes, So there's a whole elaborate title along with that, but I'm sure if you just Google Kiss the Ground, you'll find it. So Kiss the Ground, I actually haven't even read the entire book, but what that did, the first couple chapters, what that did for me is it frightened me into action in the way that it talks a lot about chemicals and the types of chemicals that are being used on our food and in our water system, or just things that are running off into our water system. And people, I don't think, are fully aware of the consequences of what they're eating. The Roundup that they use to spray on their weeds is literally Nazi warfare chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, I didn't know what to do or think, and I just thought to myself, I just need to grow my food. This is just crazy. This is poison, actual poison on our food.
Mm-hmm.
And it just blew my mind. So that was really kind of the tipping point. And like I said, it frightened me into action. The things that continue to drive me more locally, like on a daily basis, are the connections that I make with the earth, the other people in my community, and also with myself, just learning, so much about myself along the way, and, communicating with people and just making all those connections. And it's just being human.
Wow. Good on you. And if you could recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so it would be that book, The Kiss the Ground. Like I said, I'm not completely all the way through it yet, but the title indicates that it will give ways to help improve the way you eat and how you care for the environment. So once I finish that, then I'll know better about it. But the beginning of the book was enough to influence me. And so the Kiss the Ground would be the book that I would suggest for as far as urban farming or growing your gardens or learning more about the environment. And then I have another one that's more of like a personal growth kind of thing. So that's more along the lines of confidence, and it's called You Are a Bad A Blank Blank. So the book is by Jen Sincero, and it's just kind of like a self-help book to kind of help get yourself out of your own way and stop doubting and just go for what you want.
Awesome. I definitely have heard. In fact, I've got a copy of Josh's book. He does great work, and I've read some of it. So excellent choices on books.
Thanks.
And what one final piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
Grow something, grow anything. And then also just use all of your resources. Take a minute to look around and try to find things that are available that maybe you didn't know about. Ask your neighbors, ask your family, join a group in town. Just really, really find those resources.
And I love how you integrated the name of your farm in your piece of advice. Grow something, grow anything.
Yep. Well, it's very influential to me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Liane.
Thank you.
And how can our listeners find you?
So we do have a specific Instagram account for our urban farm, and the handle for that is something_anything_urban farm.
Cool. And that's on Instagram.
Yeah. So, yep, Instagram. Feel free to send us a message on there or comment or follow along. And it's public, and yeah, anyone can see. And we post all of our adventures on there, of what's happening.
Awesome. You can also find show notes from today's podcast at urbanfarm.org/Liane.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.